Hey, what is going on guys? My name is ThePromG and welcome back to a brand new video. Now today, what I'm bringing you guys is my top 10 favorite manga of all time. You know, I get a lot of questions asking my top 10, top 5 favorite manga, anime, so I decided to finally buckle down and give you guys these videos that you've been asking for so long. With that being said, today is going to be my top 10 manga of all time, and then next week, on Friday, it's going to be my top 10 anime of all time because a lot of people were actually requesting that video as well. So a couple things to say before we get into this video. Number one, that this is my personal top 10 list of my favorite manga. Not the best manga, but just my personal favorite manga that I enjoyed the most. And number two, if I don't have your favorite manga on this list, it may be because I didn't read it at all, because there are a lot of series that I just haven't gotten to yet. Even some series that I currently own, I just haven't gotten around to reading it, or I haven't read enough of it yet. Some examples I put up on the screen, so before you comment, just consider the fact that I have limited time like everyone else, so I can't read everything out there. And number three is that this list is subject to change over time, obviously, as everybody's opinions are. Now, I don't think that there will be any dramatic changes to this list in the near future, but as of when I'm making this video right now, this is my top 10 favorite manga of all time. So yeah, without further ado, let's get right into the top 10 list. Starting off at number 10, we have The Flowers of Evil by Shuzo Oshimi. I'll go on the limb and say that this is probably the weirdest manga that is on this top 10 list. But yeah, The Flowers of Evil is about this middle school kid who goes in after school one day and finds his crush's gym clothes on the floor, so he goes and takes them home and does some questionable stuff. But he finds out later that the weird girl in his class actually was there in the classroom at the time and saw him do it, and she proceeds to blackmail him to do all sorts of crazy stuff. You know, this manga is super perverted, super uncomfortable at times. You know, there's some questionable scenes that may be triggering to some people, but man, if this is not an addicting story from start to finish, I don't know what is. It's only 11 volume series, and the volumes are actually pretty short, and just the amount of text that's on each page really keeps the pages moving. The story is obviously short and somewhat simple, so it's very easy to grasp what's going on, and it's very easy to get invested in this messed up situation that all three of the main characters are wrapped up in. So if you're looking for something short, sweet, and super messed up, I definitely recommend The Flowers of Evil. Number 9 on the list is going to go to Goodnight Punpun by Inio Asano. Again, we have another strange series, and if you've read it, you'll know what I'm talking about. You know, there are lots of things that are very unique to this series. This manga follows Punpun starting off in elementary school where he meets the love of his life, and he's absolutely obsessed with this one girl, and it shows them how they go from elementary to their adult life. It shows how Punpun faces all these hardships and these messed up things, and his life just slowly starts to deteriorate until it becomes this snowball effect where he's just beyond saving. Goodnight Punpun is a manga that is notorious for being depressing and not the most uplifting of stories. And while I wouldn't say that this manga personally made me depressed or super sad, it definitely left me thinking at certain moments, and I will say the first 3 volumes were super relatable and made me get in my feels a little bit. Going in, I thought that Asano would just unload all this depression and this dread upon the reader, but that's actually not the case. The story is very interesting and deep, as well as the characters. And through, I found Goodnight Punpun to be one of my favorite manga of all time, so it's definitely worth your read. And I actually do have a first impression review of this manga if you want to check that out. I believe it covers the first 3 volumes of this manga, which are personally my favorite, so definitely go check that one out. But yeah, Goodnight Punpun is one, again, that I would only read if you're comfortable with some darker things and some messed up, potentially triggering events. You know, this one is not for the faint of heart by any means. So coming in at number 8 on this list, we have Planetess by Makoto Yukimura. I'm going to say that at the moment I'm recording this, Makoto Yukimura is definitely my favorite mangaka ever, and because he only has 2 series actually published in English, it's no wonder that Planetess is going to be on my top 10 list. I believe that Planetess is a 4 or 5 volume series, but I personally read it in the Dark Horse Omnibus edition. This manga is a super fast, super affordable read, and what you get from this is an absolutely amazing story. So basic description of the story is these 3 astronauts who are up in space and they collect trash from their little space station. So you have this slice of life element, which is very enjoyable. But when you dig deeper, it's just this super deep story about the human psyche, the human condition, mental illness. You know, there's all sorts of stuff that a lot of other manga don't even touch on. When I started this manga, I was instantly pulled in by the amount of depth that go into each characters, especially these side characters, and that's the main thing that I really like about this manga. I feel that the real value in this manga comes from just the side stories of these characters who don't really have a huge role in the overarching plot, but throughout the manga there are these short stories where some of the characters have connections to the main cast, but a lot of them just have no relation at all, and you kind of get to look into their lives, and you get to see how people live in this futuristic environment where some people are moving up to space and some people are still down on Earth, but humankind is advancing more towards the future. And again, it tackles all sorts of things such as relationships, parenting, mental illness, the human condition, religion. I mean, there's just so many things, the list goes on that this manga covers. And I will say that Planetess is one of the only 2 manga that has ever made me cry, so I mean, it has that going for it. So if you're a fan of Makoto Yukimura's other more popular work, which we'll get into later, trust me, I definitely recommend you check out this short, sweet, and amazing series, Planetess. So coming in at number 7, we have Blade the Immortal by Hiroaki Samura. Blade the Immortal is my first ever samurai manga, and wow, what an amazing series to start off on the genre. The story follows 2 main characters, Manji and Rin. Manji was labeled the 100-man killer after he kind of went on this rampage, killing a bunch of cops, and thanks to the help of some special worms, he's able to actually stay alive forever. Because of this, he dedicates his life to righting his wrongs by killing 1,000 bad guys. And eventually he crosses paths with Rin, who actually had her parents and her whole family killed by this group of samurai who belong to the samurai school, the Ito Ryu. And trust me, I could go a lot more into depth on the story, but it's just so deep, and that's one of the reasons why I really love the story. And honestly, the last few omnibus of this series are probably some of my favorite manga that I've ever read. After an omnibus of setup, it's just non-stop, balls to the wall action, and I really just could not get enough of it. But I'd probably say that the main thing I really like about this manga is the characters, especially the villains. Everybody is just so fleshed out. I even found myself liking some of the villains who maybe I wasn't supposed to like. Maybe not the actions of the characters per se, but some of the antagonists. If you've read the series, you definitely know who I'm talking about. So you know, you have an amazing journey, super fleshed out and interesting and lovable characters, as well as some amazing artwork and action. You know, all these things blended in together. With Blade the Immortal, you're gonna have an amazing manga, and definitely in my top 10 favorites of all time. So coming up next at number 6, we actually have a manga that I finished yesterday by the time that I'm recording this video, and that is 20th Century Boys by Naoki Urasawa. 20th Century Boys is one of those series that everybody was telling me to read, and I actually have owned for over a year, but I just didn't get around to reading it for one reason or another. So I can finally say that I've completed 20th Century Boys, and wow, this was such an amazing story. The story follows this group of kids in the 60s or 70s, I believe, and they have this secret hideout where their friend group actually comes up with this book of prophecy. And the book of prophecy is basically these events where they make up things that happen and how they will protect the world from evil. But one day, right before the year 2000, the main leader of the group, Kenji, actually sees the symbol of their old childhood friend group, and it's being used as a logo for this up-and-coming kind of religious cult organization. And eventually things just spiral absolutely out of control, and I won't spoil anything. I think that this is a good series to go in blind. But yeah, there's just so much suspense and twists at every turn. Obviously, Naoki Urasawa is one of the best mangaka for suspense, and just storytelling in general. This manga is nothing short of a masterpiece. And I can say without a doubt that this manga, 20th Century Boys, has my favorite manga character of all time, and that of course would have to be Kenji. I mean, you follow him from starting off as a child and then going to his adult life, going back and forth in between these time periods. You get to learn so much about him, and honestly, if you're going to strive to be a good person, just read 20th Century Boys and just try to live your life like Kenji. You know, maybe I'll have to get a tattoo, hashtag WWKD, what would Kenji do, so I can see how to live my life. So the storytelling, the suspense, and the amazing lovable characters are some of the reasons why I absolutely adore 20th Century Boys. If you haven't tried this series, currently they're coming out with the perfect editions, so I think that now is the perfect time to start reading this series and see what you've been missing out on. I guess I'm not really one to talk because I'm only now reading this series, but you get what I mean. So now, ladies and gentlemen, we are into ThePromG's top 5 favorite manga of all time, and starting off the list very strong, we have Eden It's an Endless World by Hiroki Endo. I'll start off by saying that there may not be a more fitting manga title than there is for Eden It's an Endless World, except for maybe Buddha, because it's literally about Buddha, but for now, just forget about that series. What I mean by the title being super fitting is that Eden It's an Endless World has one of the most deep, fleshed out, and complicated worlds and stories that exist in manga, in my personal opinion. So there are a lot of things that go on in this manga. There is this virus that's going around turning people into stone. There's this drug cartel who the main character's dad actually runs. There's also this organization that wants to take over the world, and they have all these crazy killer robots. I mean, I could go on and on about all the stuff that goes in this manga, but you know, it could probably be its own hour-long video on its own. It goes without saying that the world building in this manga is absolutely masterful, but that's just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to things that I absolutely adore about this manga. So first off, I gotta mention the artwork, which is absolutely sublime. You know, it's not always too detailed, but when it is, it's done absolutely perfectly. But the main reason I really like the artwork is just because of how clean it is, and when it comes to the action, you really cannot beat this manga. The clean style blends seamlessly with this fluid action. It's so easy to follow what's going on in the scene. Honestly, I don't know how Endo got the artwork to look so good and fluid. Probably some black magic or something. But yeah, to this day, I don't think that any manga can stand toe-to-toe with the action sequences in Eden. You also have a plethora of twists and turns throughout the entire series. You know, characters can die at any moment, nobody's safe. But the thing about it is that it's done meaningfully. You know, they don't just kill off characters for the sake of killing off characters. It would be an understatement to say that this manga keeps you on your toes at all times. Also in Eden, I don't think you get a more accurate depiction of things like drug abuse, you know, sex work, all these different kind of things that, again, not a lot of manga even touch on. Endo just portrays them perfectly. It's so human, and that's what I really love about Eden. Even though it's just fiction, as you're reading it, you really do feel some kind of human connection to these characters. Same with Planet Test. It's just something that I really value in a manga. That being said, I know a lot of you guys haven't read this manga or have even heard of it, so definitely go change that and read Eden It's an Endless World. So coming in at the number 4 spot, we have One Punch! That is right, ladies and gentlemen. At number 4, we have One Punch Man by One. At least One is behind the original story and the webcomic, I believe, but let's just say that this is one of the most dynamic duos in all of manga right now. It is without a doubt that Yusuke Murata is the best art in Shonen Jump right now, and if you disagree, I mean, there's the door. You can't see it, but it's there. But yeah, for some reason, if you don't know One Punch Man is, it basically follows Saitama, who is this bald dude who basically is a hero for fun. But he's just so dumb OP that he gets no joy anymore from fighting opponents because they're all too weak. So he's on the search for a really tough opponent who will give him a run for his money. But while Saitama is an amazing and super funny character, I think that what really sets this manga apart is the amazing side cast. I think that a lot of people agree with me on this one, is that these side heroes, whether it be S heroes or the A heroes, or even the lower class heroes that are shown pretty often, they really do carry the series, especially in the later half of the series. You know, you have all these fan favorites like King, Genos, Bang, I could go on and on. All of their character designs, their powers, their personalities. So much effort and love has gone into this manga, and it's so apparent. And kind of like I mentioned earlier, the artwork, Yusuke Murata, he probably has some of that black magic going for him too, because look at this artwork. Like, it does not get better than this in Shonen Jump or in a lot of manga. And while you have these moments of absolutely insane detail, you also have the contrast, which is, you know, these blank faces, which are one of my favorite tropes in all of manga. So yeah, it's needless to say that I really enjoy the artwork in this one. This is one of the only manga that I can just pick up a volume if I'm like listening to music or just chilling out, and I can go through it pretty fast and just have an absolutely amazing ride, you know, just laugh my ass off. It's one of the only series that has actually made me laugh out loud ever. The situations that the characters are in are absolutely hilarious, but aside from the comedy aspect, you know, you also have a very interesting story. So while there are some serious moments and some like life lessons that you get from it, most of the time it's just a fun ride. You can sit back and unwind and read, and for that reason, it's at my number 4 spot for my favorite manga of all time. Alright, so now we're into my top 3 favorite manga of all time, and this is where the real hard hitters start coming in. Starting off at number 3, we have Berserk. I have a feeling that a lot of people are actually going to take offense to me putting this manga in the number 3 spot because they think it's the best of all time, but I just want you guys to hear me out, because first of all, I absolutely love Berserk, don't get me wrong. Now, let me just say that the first 16 volumes of this manga is the best manga that I've ever read, period. I have yet to read anything even come close to just the amount of brilliant storytelling, character development, not to mention the incredible artwork right out the gate. So yeah, the Golden Age arc bleeding into the Eviction arc is the best manga that money can buy, in my humble opinion. And I don't want to talk too much about why I don't like the later part of Berserk, because obviously this is my top 10 manga of all time video. I don't want to dwell too much on the negatives. But the only reason that Berserk is not in my number 1 spot is because it kind of falls off in the Falcon of the Millennium arc, in my opinion, and it just keeps kind of getting worse and worse. It's not horrible, but where we're at right now, I would say, is probably like a 6 to a 7 if I'm being generous. But yeah, the first 16 volumes, in my opinion, easy 10. I mean, if I could give it 11, I'd give it an 11 because it's just that good. But yeah, Berserk is the golden standard when it comes to dark fantasy, no pun intended. You just have this absolutely depressing medieval environment, and you know, all these battle scenes, kind of goes into the army aspect of it. It also goes into these royal settings as well, and a lot of themes about, you know, kingdom, and again, royal politics. So you kind of get everything you could ever ask for in a dark fantasy series. And when it comes to art and action, there are not a lot of series that can do it better than Berserk. Now, I've kind of dogged on the later parts of Berserk in the past, but you know, as it goes on, the artwork just keeps getting better and better, and the action follows suit. And another thing that I really like about Berserk is the characters, especially Guts and Griffith. Right off the bat, when you start the series, you know that something goes down between the two, who seem to be great friends in the Golden Age arc, but you know that something goes down between them where they're now mortal enemies. And just watching that all unfold is truly a spectacle, and again, the best storytelling that I've ever read in a manga ever. So if the storytelling in this manga was kept consistent as the series went on past the Conviction arc, you know, this would without a doubt be my favorite manga of all time. But unfortunately, you know, this is not the case. But that does absolutely not take away from the fact that Berserk is my top 3 favorite manga of all time. And I mean, this is just such a classic series, beloved by so many, and let's just say there's so many good reasons for that. So coming in at the number 2 spot, we have Vinland Saga, again, by Makoto Yukimura. Now let me just start off by saying that I'm so glad that this manga got an anime adaptation, because this series started out like not being actually too popular. Obviously had its cult following, and it was well known to a degree, but as the anime adaptation came out, I believe last year or 2 years ago, I forget when, you know, it just brought the mainstream audience to this manga, which is absolutely amazing to see. Again, not to say this manga wasn't popular before the anime came out, but you know, it definitely helped get more eyes on the series, and we're very lucky that the anime adaptation of Vinland Saga was well received. Obviously, the story of Thorfinn, as it takes him through all sorts of different places, whether it be the battlefield to eventually a slave on a farm, and then beyond that, he basically starts off as this bloodthirsty warmonger, but then at the halfway point, as of where we are right now, you know, this takes a complete 180, and he becomes a pacifist where he wants to settle in Vinland and create kind of this safe haven where it's no violence and there's just peace for everybody. And obviously it's not easy for Thorfinn at all, you know, it's just the journey, and that's what I really love about this manga is the journey. You get to see Thorfinn go on so many different stages of his life, so many different places around the world. Needless to say that the character development is absolutely top-notch in Vinland Saga. I'd say that Thorfinn's character development is probably some of the best, if not the best, I've ever read. Also, the characters that you get to meet along the way, you have Gudrid, Lee, the other Thorfinn. You also have characters like Einar, Garm, you know, all these super lovable and interesting characters thrown into the mix. It really makes the journey super enjoyable. Also, if you're into history, this story is actually pretty accurate when aligning with the real life events of these characters, some of which are actually not fictitious. Obviously, some of them are, and their actions are fictitious, but you know, these are real people who actually did exist. And come on, I cannot talk about Vinland Saga without mentioning the action and the artwork. There's so many massive scale battle scenes where people are just getting their arms, their limbs, their heads all chopped off, getting stabbed in the eye with arrows. It really does portray the horrors of war, and that kind of plays into Thorfinn's character development as well. And another thing I really like about the artwork in this manga is the landscapes. I mean, you could take from especially the Vinland Saga arc, where they're on this vast plantation basically, where there's rolling hills, green plains, and fields of crops. I mean, it's super, super beautiful. Also, depictions of these countries all around the world, and the depictions of battle scenes, you know, truly depicting the horrors of war. It's all done absolutely perfectly. So yeah, Vinland Saga is at my number 2 spot. If you just watched the anime but you haven't read the manga, I highly, highly recommend you go and check out the manga to fill yourself in before the new season comes out. Or if you haven't checked out Vinland Saga at all, it definitely has my highest recommendation. So before we get into the number 1 spot, which is pretty obvious, if you've been around the channel, you know what this is, or at least you should. But before we do that, I'm going to do 2 honorable mentions, series that didn't quite make the cut, but I do enjoy it very much. The first honorable mention is Pluto by Naoki Urasawa, which is a retelling of the Greatest Robot arc, I believe, from Astro Boy. It retells that story with, you know, his own interesting storytelling elements, as well as the masterful artwork that Naoki Urasawa brings to the table. You know, it's an 8-volume series, it's pretty short, and it's absolutely amazing. So I'd probably say it's the best series for people who are interested in getting into Naoki Urasawa's works. It's definitely an amazing place to start. And the second honorable mention is Blam by Tsutomu Nihei. Often regarded as one of the best sci-fi manga of all time, I definitely cannot argue with that. I mean, it's absolutely amazing. Super environmental, not a lot of dialogue, and you get to see this character Killy with his gun basically roam this endless barren world, which is super well drawn, as he looks for net terminal genes, which aren't really explained, but you know, the more you learn about the world and about Killy, the more you kind of get invested into the story, and you get to uncover all these secrets that Tsutomu Nihei weaves into this endless world. And don't listen to anyone who says the ending is bad, because it is good. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. So alas, the moment you've all been waiting for, the moment you probably could have seen coming from the very beginning, and that is my number 1 favorite manga of all time. And if you've been around the channel, this comes as no surprise that my number 1 favorite manga of all time is Eromanga Sensei. I mean Gantz. Now I know I made a video talking about all the reasons why I hate Gantz, but trust me, that was a paid advertisement by the Anti-Gantz Federation. You know, my hands were tied, there was nothing I could really do about that, but now to my honest opinion, I absolutely love Gantz. Gantz is about these 2 high school students who get hit by a train and they're transported to this apartment room with this black circle and a bunch of other people who have supposedly died. And the main reason I absolutely fell in love with Gantz is because of absolutely how batshit insane it is. This manga is just non-stop go, 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 constant action, fighting, gore, sex, plot twists, character deaths, you know, it's just non-stop action. Reading Gantz is like popping 5 tabs of acid, going to Disneyland, and just going on an absolute rampage with your extendable 20-foot samurai sword. Is that a good analogy? I think it is. All the boxes are checked when it comes to Gantz. The amazing artwork and action is just done super well. It's super clean and just keeps the pages flipping. I really like it when a manga makes me feel like I'm not even reading, like I'm just experiencing it. And that's basically what I felt when I was reading Gantz. You know, I wasn't even aware that I was even flipping the pages. I was just experiencing this absolute acid trip of a story that showed absolutely no signs of slowing down. Now, I've talked about Gantz a lot in my past videos. I'm actually going to be releasing my manga review for the series, the highly anticipated manga review for Gantz in the very near future. So I'm going to stop this right now talking about it and make you guys wait for the full Gantz manga review coming out very soon. Well, with that being said, Gantz is my number 1 favorite manga of all time. If you haven't read it, I highly recommend you check it out. If you don't, I will kill you. Anyways, guys, that's my top 10 manga of all time. If you guys did enjoy this video, make sure to leave a like and subscribe for more manga videos just like this, as well as my top 10 anime video of all time coming next week on Friday. So yeah, this has been ThePromG. Hopefully you enjoyed the video, and as always, hope to catch you in the next one.